Thank you, Toby, for putting this together, and thank you for the time that we have here. My name's Tony Ammeter. I'm originally from Canada, so when I got off the plane in Kristiansand, I thought, oh, it's great to be out of the heat and humidity of the deep south, and it's really been great here in Norway. Sirkka is a professor in information systems at the University of Texas at Austin. That's where I got my PhD. She was on my committee. That was in 2000, and it's been taken this long. This is the first project we've actually worked together on. So my area is management, and I teach in management information systems. I teach a course currently in the MBA program on the strategic management of innovation and technology. My background is computer engineering in Canada, and then I got interested more in how people use technology than the technology per se. So I think esports is an interesting, I'll go into that a little bit more in a minute. I put here some notes from academic administration. So I am also an associate provost and a dean at the university, and so that's an academic administrator, and Robin did a great job yesterday talking about Germany and others talking about the different differences, bless you, the differences in how esports is supported by universities. And I think this is going to be interesting for us to learn more about this. I know, and Seth, you're giving a talk tomorrow on sort of a survey of how it's done in the United States. So this is just one administrator's viewpoint of something that I really didn't know much about until the provost said, will you work together with our esports team? All right, so the question is, the problem that we have is how to get students to be engaged in classes. Much larger in the United States, we have a slower rate of growth in terms of, and actually a drop off in the number of students available to attend universities. So it's a shrinking pool with a lot of universities trying to get good students in. Can esports contribute much needed engagement and excitement? This is a picture from one of our esports teams championships. Clearly, yes. All right, clearly, yes. The second question, how can we organize these esports programs in a way to increase the academic opportunities and work opportunities later on for our students? I think the answer is we can. We're interested in studying how that actually could work, all right? So I'm going to start with the end point, and that is these are some quotes from our students over the last few years. In fact, these specific quotes were from a survey that we did just the end of April of students who took our esports alternative sports management class, which is our capstone class for esports minor that we have, which is very new. We're very new at this game. But you can see some of these things are, yes, it's basically, can esports help us build career-related expertise? Yes. All right. Do we build community? And this is one of the things that we've tried to focus on a lot and has been very, very good to see. Yes, the esports organization, the club, builds community. And in terms of competitiveness, we have had some comments about, yes, we get to play a lot, and in some cases, we actually win some events. All right. So what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about is a bit of a journey through a multi-year project that Sirkka has been once an advisor, always an advisor. Has been very good leading us through. We've done an autoethnographic analysis. I'm the autoethnographer, and she is the expert on the sort of on the outside, looking at what we've done. We've done interviews. We have archival material. Some of this was presented in a paper that Sirkka presented for us at the International Computer and Information Systems International Conference on Information Systems in 2023. We're happy to make that available to you as well. The research setting is my university, University of Mississippi. I think it's important, and I know, Seth, I'm sure you're going to go through this as well. There are differences in universities in the United States, just like there are differences in universities here. Our specific setting is what I would call a medium-sized public flagship state university, publicly funded. We are at the Carnegie Research R1 level, so it's very high research activity. It's important to note that as a public state university, and Mississippi is a very, very poor state, all right, in terms of dollars. So our goal, part of our mission, which I'll show you in a minute, if you read into that mission, it is to guarantee pretty much open access to any Mississippian who wants to go to college, all right? There are actually 13 other there are 7 other public institutions in Mississippi. Ours is tied to be the largest, and we're along with that other one, R1. So as long as you can meet a minimum standard, All right, you will be at the University of Mississippi. Half of our population of students, however, is from out of state. All right, and they have a much higher standard. They pay a much higher tuition, and that helps fund the students who from Mississippi, many of whom cannot afford the tuition to come to our university. Without that funding. We're also a member of the NCAA football Power Five. I've got this graphic should give you a better example here. Because esports is a sport, all right, or at least that's how we're considering it, all right, as a sport, it's important to know where we come from. The map on the upper left shows you a map of the United States. That square, red rectangle, I should say, is the geographic area of the Southeastern Conference. That's the conference within which we play most of our sports, and then there's national competitions after. Here's a more zoomed in, well, oops, I went too far there. There we go. Ole Miss is in the center. Where the University of Mississippi, our name is Ole Miss. That's just not Ole, but like Old Miss. So we're very proud of our conference. We're one of the larger conferences, but we're the third smallest university in this conference. So if we're competing for sports, we have a long way to go to get the best players in our conference, all right? So speaking about esports, though, why should a university support an esports program? One of the things, if we've been in any business or management classes, why does any organization do anything? We look to its mission, all right? So the mission for the University of Mississippi is this. I've highlighted in yellow here. Some of the most important things: providing opportunities, excellence in learning, discovery, healthcare, and engagement. Where does esports sit in that? All right, that's what we need to know in order to do what is probably the thing that, Robin, you'd mentioned a lot of. Why or why not would a university fund esports? Okay, and by the way, I'm happy to take questions or comments at any point in time, but I'll try and move quickly. And I should have mentioned this presentation is done in two parts. The first one is, what does an academic administrator want to say? How does and that's what you're seeing right now. I'm almost done. And then the second part is, what did we find, and what are the students actually saying, and what was the journey that we went through? So I'm not sure how much time we're going to have, but we'll give you the administrator portion first, because that's what paid me to get here, and then I'll give you the fun part. All right. So typical of most universities, we have academic, student services, and athletics would be the most likely places where esports would fit, and that's at least that's from our perspective. And as you look at other surveys of other universities across different regions, and I'll be interested in hearing what happens in the United States, we chose to put this in academics. All right, and so it's important to remember, though, that wherever this esports is put, there's a cost to supporting esports. And as a public university, if we spend money on esports for scholarships, for machines, for travel, that means there's less money to spend on other programs, all right? So that's what an academic administrator is trying to do, is trying to figure out how do we properly and equitably put the money in where it needs to be. So some of the mechanism, and public universities in the U.S. are becoming more and more tuition driven. I think most universities in the United States are all tuition. So we do get some money from the state, but very little. Most are, in fact, 92% of our revenue, all right, as far as I can tell, comes from tuition. So students paying tuition, okay? Scholarships, so way we attract esports students, that last set of 5, scholarships for tuition, board, and books, that's one of our major ways. And we're new at this. We've only really had a scholarship program for the last 2 years. All right, a full ride scholarship for the University of Mississippi would be somewhere around $20,000 to $24,000. That's for an out-of-state student. There'd be other expenses on top of that. Sponsorship for league and tournament play, we would pay for that if you're competing. We have an esports facility and coaching for the competitive events, esports facility for the students who are part of the club but aren't necessarily into the highly competitive, and we travel. And then this last one, which is the bullet point that I've used the most, all right, is to provide a community for individuals who are not usually recognized on campus. So I'll go through this in tiny little bit more detail, but the way I got involved was we had a large group of students already creating an informal esports club as part of an organization like a university, we thought, well, we have to give it some structure. And the provost who I work for said, Tony, you know, my background being computer engineering, I'm a little bit awkward. I know what it's like to be an undergraduate student and have no one except my other computer engineer friends to hang around with. I think that's why he chose me. Anyhow, that was, to me, a very interesting thing to be able to do, to work with these students. And I still to this day, do not know a lot about it, all right, because I'm learning, still learning. All right, so why did it end up as an academic initiative? This is the last slide from the academic administrator side of the house, all right? We thought that having a good esports program, and this is how from a business school, we would say this is how we sold this idea. We could recruit students, not just esports students, by the connection of prospective students to video gaming and esports events. Parents, when we at orientation, or prospective students, parents, when they hear that there's actually scholarships for esports students, we only have very few scholarships. But they're interested in that. You mean my son's been playing video games in the basement and perhaps he could get a scholarship? And statistically speaking, probably not. But he could play in a club with other people rather than playing in his or her dorm room. They can come to the club and then they would hang out and have someone to actually hang out with. All right, that's important. All right, retention of students. If those people have a good community to hang out with, that's good for them. Success of the alumni. This is why we rely very heavily on donors, private individuals, to donate money to the universities, because if they become successful, all right, then they would have more available income to donate to a university. So we like to be able to attract alumni. Increased rankings and recruitment success makes our university more attractive. More successful alumni, more dollars for education, better students, better jobs. It's a cycle, right? Competition success, and this is the mission enhancing donations. We'll talk a little bit about alumni donations in a second. And this is a quote from our provost. And the provost, I'm not sure, in many different universities, the chief academic officer may have different names. So you've got the faculty, you've got department chairs, you've got deans, we're all faculty. And the provost is a faculty member who helps with the administration of that. If we add an excellent program, he's saying, it appeals to our students. We stand to increase the number of students who choose to pursue their education. We believe we provide a very good education. The more students we get, the more we have the opportunity to provide that good education. And let's face it, I'm from the business school. Their tuition dollars help us provide that education for more later on. All right. So that's the first half. Any questions on the administrator side, the boring side? All right. But that's what your administrators, your chairs, all right, are thinking about, or at least at our university, that's what I found we had to think about. Okay, so the second half, as you can see, much more fun. This is, I'm going to describe three different phases. The first one is how the students led the growth. And Seth, how much time do I, or sorry, Toby, how much time do I have there? 7 minutes. 7 minutes, okay. All right, I can do this. So you don't really need to read all of this. We'll make the slides available to you for sure. I've highlighted in green sort of the most important parts. 2017, a small group of students, all right, approaches our computer science department chair and says, can we use the lab for some video gaming on Friday nights? And she said yes. All right, so each Friday night they'd order in pizza. Most of the time they'd leave the lab in good shape, all right? But that's been great. And over time, the numbers grew. They asked to set up a special LAN event against our main in-state rival, all right? And they wanted to use our brand new basketball arena, which seats about 16,000 people, and it's a beautiful space for this esports event. And so the provost, at that time, it meant real dollars would be spent. So then the provost asks someone in the provost's office, awkward Tony, to work with the esports students. And this was really interesting because most of the time I spent was working with other people on campus, not the students. It was the people who ran events. It was people from the different departments. And there was a lot of enthusiasm, but not a lot of direction, okay? But eventually, because the students knew what they wanted, we were able to get it together. They had their event. At that event, all right, so this is our first event that we have, a prospective donor, someone who had donated to the football program for several years, his young son dragged him, using his words, to this esports event. And the donor was amazed. You know, there's probably maybe 80 people there, max, but it's in this beautiful arena. People are really watching the games being played very closely, and he sees an opportunity. He's thinking, well, I could help the university by giving this much money to the football program, the American football program, college football program, this much money in their total budget that's much bigger than my arms can go. Or I could give this much money to the esports program, and it's the entire budget. All right, so that's what he did. That's what he did. I want to give you an example of how academic administrators pitch to a donor or pitch to donors for esports dollars. And this was actually, we were invited to do a pitch. What would you do with $10 million? And there were 3 different projects. And so our chief information officer, who knows a lot about esports, and myself did this pitch. And I'm just going to go through this really quickly. This is what we were trying to do to communicate to donors who didn't know about, maybe they knew about video games, but didn't know a lot about esports. All right, so we start off with saying, hey, there are tryouts. You 65-year-old donor, you could try out if you want. You might still have some eligibility, haha. All right. We show them pictures of other events. This is not our event, of course. These are just taken from online. Look, if you can win trophies. And for one thing, for example, the fact that people would spend time traveling to an event to watch an esport that they could stream at home, all right, was incredible to the donors. But we said it's the same thing when you're talking about a football game. You can watch this at home, but it means much more when you're actually at the event and the things that happen before and after the event. All right, then we have pictures of our own people, not quite the same venue, but we won some trophies too, all right? We gave this example as to how big the esports industry is. We thought it was a great example. Avengers Endgame, the movie, $357 million in its premiere. Grand Theft Auto, $817 million in the same, roughly comparing apples to apples. Top grossing movies, $2.8 billion. World of Warcraft, video games, almost $10 billion. Looking at this, you and I know that it says esports is a big industry. One of the problems was the people who we were talking to, they didn't understand which one was the movie and which one was a video game, right? And look at how poorly we chose. The movie Avengers Endgame is the movie. It's not. So we really have to work harder, and that's something you have to do is think about your audience. What we did do that did resonate, and every time we've done this kind of presentation, this idea of building a community, we attract students, we achieve our mission, and we'll ask that later. Do we achieve our mission? Esports has moved from playing from an individual and virtual activity, at least on our campus, to a team and a real-world activity. So that's important, all right? And the donors who are parents themselves, all right, will sometimes think that this is a good idea. So far, they haven't written us any checks, so that's what we're looking for, all right? Phase 2, am I almost out of time? Okay, phase 2 is, here's a description of what we did, and I'll do it here. We created a director of esports programs in 2022. We hired a director from Long Island University, which is a private school with a competitive esports program. We started off on the academic minor. We created this structure in the center is that director of esports programs. We envisioned having these dotted line relationships to these different boxes. For example, diversity and community engagement, the cisgender issue you talked about. How do we handle a group of folks who are not really diverse, but have some diversity? All right, and that's what we're trying to channel that esports program to have the things, all the student-related things that any other program would have. All right. Happy to talk more about that. You saw this already. All right. Is it meeting the mission? I think so. Is it meeting the mission? These are other quotes from other people talking about the idea of helping our students learn, preparing them for work. It hits our research mission. All right. This last one here. And we also have some donors who think, yeah, perhaps there is some reason to support the program. All right, phase 3, where do we go from here? Last one, Toby. We have an esports minor program. I'm learning a lot from all of you in terms of your programs. We need more courses to be taught. If you teach an esports program online, I would really like to know if your courses could be available to our students. That would be, I think this what you're talking about, the previous presenters is very, very good to know. All right. Last slide. We're going to see the Kraken tonight. Very, very successful program. I'm going to get my picture of this. This is where we want to be in 4, 5, maybe 10 years. All right. So thank you very much.